All right. I think we're all ready to rock and roll. We're at 7 minutes, 6 seconds. So let's begin. So tonight I wanted to do something special. I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey and how hard my life was before mindfulness and meditation, right? So I'm going to get real personal. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that were happening to me about a decade, actually 11 years ago. Wow, it's a long time. It's a really long time. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the benefits of mindfulness. And I figured the best way to tell you the benefits is to tell you what I went through. If I could tell you the hell that I went through, then it will kind of perfectly juxtapose the heaven of being mindful and meditating. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then afterward, if we have time, we'll do like a mindfulness meditation real quick. All right. So let's go back in time to, we'll start at 29. We'll start at 29 years old. 29 years old, I was a guy who was working a job at Hartford Hospital. I was living with a friend of mine and his girlfriend. And I was just, yeah, the hell will help to associate, Sarah, exactly. So yeah, I was living with a friend of mine, my best friend since I was 9 years old, and his girlfriend at the time, right? And one day it occurred to me that I had been depressed for a big chunk of my adult life. Since my father died when I was 21, pretty much the entire time from 21 to 29, I was in a state of depression. And I was intoxicated for almost that entire time. I don't know if I ever became a physical addict to alcohol, but I was definitely a person who was drunk more often than not. I won't say that I ruined relationships or ruined my life or lost my job or anything. I don't know if I was categorically an alcoholic, but I was definitely drunk a lot. And it's because I was trying to self-medicate. I was trying to deal with this pain, and I didn't know where the pain was coming from exactly. I mean, yes, my father had died, but quite often when we have situations like that, we kind of assume that we can handle it. We kind of assume that it shouldn't be that big of a deal, and we beat ourselves up. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people here have done that, where you feel sadness over something, you feel like you're being crushed by the weight of an event, and you tell yourself, it shouldn't be this bad. I should just let go. Why am I holding on to it this much? Shouldn't be this bad. I should be able to handle this. But my father had died. And it didn't occur to me how hurtful this was to me. And for a very long time, I felt like this is one of those things, I got to just get over it. I got to just deal with it. I got to just handle it. Right. So throughout my 20s, I'm depressed, drinking almost every single day. And eventually, when I was 29, I said, okay, enough is enough. I have given my entire life to depression. I've given up my 20s. Well, everybody else was dating and in relationships. Everybody else was in love, having children, moving forward in a career, going to college, going away, going on vacation. I was stuck in the same spot every day, intoxicated, unable to function, unable to deal with just normal, regular life, and just lonely. Even though I had friends and I had a social life, I was just lonely. I was having difficulty connecting and building relationships and building up myself. Because even if you're going through depression, and I'm pretty sure somebody has experienced this, when you're going through depression, you could be in a room full of people and still feel lonely. If you're depressed, somebody can tell you, hey, I love you, I care about you, and you're still going to feel like nobody loves you or cares about you. That's the trick of depression. Depression is a liar. Depression is a trick of the mind to create an illusory reality, and sometimes it contradicts what's actually happening in your life. So at the age of 29, I decided I wanted to see some changes. I wanted to make change in my life. And by the age of 30, in my attempt to kind of change my thinking and change my life, one of the things that happened to me was I met the woman that I would marry, and I started having panic attacks. Now I had what I assumed were kind of like anxiety attacks in the past, because like I said, depression was something I was dealing with for a long time. And I would have these weird moments where I would just get really anxious, and I would just listen to some music and kind of just distract myself, and I would be okay after a while. But here at the age of 30, it got to the point where my body was telling me enough is enough. We're not holding back anymore. We gave you warning signs. We gave you a little anxiety. We gave you insomnia. I had insomnia to the point where I would like start hallucinating. I thought I was going insane. I had constant, nonstop suicidal ideations from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. My body and my brain were giving me every warning sign to seek help, and giving me every warning sign that it was time for a change. And I ignored every single warning sign because instead of me seeing a doctor of psychology or a doctor of psychiatry, I decided to see Dr. Jack Daniels. Dr. Jack Daniels, you know, we're calling you for the operation room for surgery because we got somebody who's depressed who can't handle it. So let's get drunk. So after a while, the drinking, if anybody has ever dealt with drinking or what they feel was a drinking problem, Dr. Jack Daniels, yeah. So anybody who's ever dealt with it, you know that you can drink to forget your problems, you can drink to ease the pain, but the pain is going to increase, and so you have to increase the dosage of alcohol. And it's a race to see, is the pain going to increase faster than the dosage you need to forget the pain, right? So my dosage for alcohol started to increase, right? But at the same time, my pain increased exponentially, way faster than my alcohol intake could even keep up. If you're like I was a guy who I would drink, but I would get up for work the next day. I was never one of those guys who would get drunk and stay in bed. I was never one of those guys who would get drunk and be incapacitated. I was always able to get up and keep it moving. So because of that, my alcohol intake had to stay at a certain level before it got out of hand. And so my pain would just shoot up. Emotional pain through the roof. And it got to the point where the alcohol it just wasn't enough. And I started to have very severe panic attacks. And I remember the first time I had one, I was over my girlfriend's house, who later become my wife. And I was in the living room watching a movie, got down on the ground, started doing some push-ups. I got up, sat down, and like maybe 20 minutes later, my heart started to beat really fast. I started hearing a pounding in my ears. And I just felt like there was so much adrenaline in my body. I felt like, okay, I should run. I felt like the only way that I could solve this is if I just started running. I felt like I had to run, not necessarily from anything, but because the adrenaline in my body was making my heart beat so fast. So I felt like I should just keep moving. That was my first instinct. It got to the point where I could barely breathe. I didn't know what was going on. And my girlfriend called the ambulance. They came to pick me up, took my blood pressure, which was through the roof. I was breathing really, really hard. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And they took me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for about half the night. They let me go. And then the following day, the same thing happened. And the day after that, the same thing happened. And then one day it got so bad, it was so horrible that I remember I was in the ER, I think for the third night in a row. And I remember there was a doctor who walks in, right? And he sees me in the bed. He takes a quick look at my chart. There's all kinds of chaos going on all around him. He walks in, he looks at me, he says, here's a prescription. Take these pills and you'll be okay. He says, this is a prescription for 10 pills. Take all 10 pills. Don't stop taking the pills. Take the whole bottle. Whatever you do, don't stop. So I got the prescription the following day. Took the first pill and immediately started to feel kind of spaced out. Can't really put it into words, but I started to feel kind of disassociated. I started to feel kind of like anxious because there was just a weird feeling in my body. Can't really explain it, but it was a weird feeling in my body. And I just felt like a sense of dread come over me. Like this pill is going to destroy me. Like this pill is going to make me sick. And the doctor didn't explain what the pill was. He didn't explain what it was for. He said this is for blood pressure, but come to find out it was an anti-anxiety pill. He didn't tell me that. And like any pill you're taking to change your mood, it's gonna change your mood. It's gonna change your mood. It's gonna change how your body feels. That's the thing. I don't believe, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an expert, but I'll say this: I don't believe there's any pill that can change your mood. I think the pill is just gonna change your body, how your body feels, and people will interpret that as a change in mood. But I don't think no pill can do that. At least not with my experience. In my experience, my body felt different, but I was still anxious and still depressed. So that first pill that I took, I said, I'm not taking these pills no more. And I remember I threw it in the garbage, threw the bottle of pills in the garbage. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to have to solve this problem myself because I don't trust these pills. These pills make me feel weird. I thought I was going to die. I remember, me and my wife are no longer together, but I remember at that time, she did stick by my side. And I remember being so afraid that the pill was going to kill me. That I remember I just told her, like, just hold me. I'm just gonna go to sleep holding you. Just hold me real, real tight. And if I stop breathing, and of course, there's all this anxiety talking. I'm like, if I stop breathing, wake me up or call an ambulance. So I fell asleep, woke up the next day. I said, I'm not taking these pills anymore, despite what the doctor told me. I said, I'm not taking them anymore. The problem's in my mind. I'm going to use my mind to solve the problem. And years before that, I had found a book. And that's why I think that is kind of an interesting sense of synchronicity in my life. Years before that, I had found a book called The Religions of Man by Houston Smith. And The Religions of Man by Houston Smith was a book that dealt with the various religions of the world. It dealt with Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and the book talked a lot about meditation. It talked a lot about meditation. At the time when I found the book, I had attempted some form of meditation, but it didn't really work for me. I didn't know anything about meditation. I was just sitting there trying to be quiet. And I remember there was a fly in the room. I couldn't concentrate, right? But I always told myself, okay, I'm gonna, for some reason, I kept saying, I'm gonna learn how to meditate. It's gonna help me in the future. I don't know why, but I know it's gonna help me in the future, right? Eventually, it did. Years later, knowing how to meditate helped me to survive in the future. I was 30 years old at that point. I had found that book when I was about 24, 25. I remembered that information when I turned 30. And when I was 30, I remember I said to myself one day, okay, I have to learn how to control this, or else I'm not going to be able to live. So one day, I sat down on a couch in the apartment I was sharing with my girlfriend at the time. And I just said to myself, I am in the present moment. And I repeated that for 5 minutes straight until I was calm. And I felt really good afterward. And so the next day, I did the exact same thing. For 5 minutes, I am in the present moment. Deep breath. I am in the present moment. 5 minutes nonstop. And then I noticed that my anxiety began to reduce slowly. Not saying it totally went away, but I've never had a panic attack since then. I've never had an anxiety attack since then. Now I've had moments of anxiety, but anxiety attacks, I've never had one again. What had happened was, and at the time I didn't have the vocabulary to describe it, but what happened was I had become mindful. I had learned to become mindful and immerse myself in the present moment so that the trick that my mind and my body were trying to pull was stopped dead in its tracks. My mind and my body were trying to pull the trick of convincing me that I was in danger. What's going on, Tribal Chief Lowe's? Peace. Peace, my brother. My mind and my body were trying to pull a trick and convince me that I was in danger. So that's why the rapid heart rate, the rise in blood pressure, the intense breathing, my body was lying to me saying, you're in danger. You have to fight or run or freeze in preparation for imminent danger. But by immersing myself in the present moment, I became very aware of the fact that I was not in danger. I was very aware of the fact that my body was safe, that I was in a safe space, that I was calm, that there was no danger around me. There was nothing to be afraid of. And that started my journey to becoming mindful and meditating. And that's panic attacks. That stopped my anxiety attacks. And it was a long journey. I remember, I was going through major depression, where to the point where I would just break out crying sometimes. I remember instances where I'm hanging out with my friends and then I'm just crying. I remember instances where I was at the gym one day and I'm working out. I'm on a treadmill crying, bawling my eyes out, but still running on the treadmill, and my mood became more stabilized. I began to see things clearly. As opposed to getting stuck in my own mind, I began the journey of actually awakening. They call it an awakening because when you're stuck in your mind, you're what? You're asleep. You're dreaming. You're dreaming, and when you dream, you can dream of all these horrible things going on. Your body is dreaming. Your body thinks these horrible things are happening to you, especially if you've gone through trauma, which I have. Many of us have gone through trauma. I bet any amount of money, a lot of us, yes, exactly, videos, a metamorphosis. I bet a lot of us, many of us on this live stream right now have gone through some kind of debilitating trauma. Many of us who have followed the path of meditation were pushed here by, horrible, unfortunate things that we had to deal with. And we discovered mindfulness and meditation because we wanted a way out. We needed a way out. And that was my story, and that was a part of my journey. Now, of course, I would still have tough moments, and there were still really tough obstacles to deal with. But being mindful and meditating actually helped me to immerse myself in the present moment, so that thoughts of the past wouldn't harm me, and dread of the future wouldn't harm me. They would say, you think about the past, you get depressed. You think about the future, you get anxious. And I remember, me being me, I'm trying to develop ways to heal trauma quickly so I could teach it to other people. And I remember I was being kind of reckless. I didn't have a meditation teacher. There was, at that time, I didn't know of anybody. There was no institutions around really at that time to teach you and educate you what could possibly happen. And I remember one time I was doing an experiment because I was trying to heal some of my past trauma, and I was experimenting with self-hypnosis, which is kind of crazy in retrospect. And I remember like a memory from my past resurfaced, and I started feeling like I was going to have another panic attack. And I said to myself, well, wait a second. First of all, whatever happened in the past is not happening now. And then second of all, my thought or my memory is just that. It's just a spark of energy in the brain that don't necessarily have anything to do with my present moment. So as that memory resurfaced, right, and my body started to react with fear, guess what? I was able to avoid a panic attack. I was able to stop a panic attack from occurring simply by I'm in the present moment. Reminding myself that I was in the present moment, and by reminding yourself that you're in the present moment, it kind of opens up a door in your mind where you begin to see the true nature of mind. The true nature of mind is illusory. There is a reality beyond mind where you can become the observer and watch your mind. You can literally sometimes sit back and watch what your mind is doing and watch what your body is doing. That is what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness is a state of consciousness that's beyond mind. You're beyond the mind. So now I can sit back and look at these thoughts and say, wow, these thoughts are interesting, but I don't have to react to them. These feelings in my body, these sensations in my body, they're interesting, but I don't have to react to them. The mind and the body are they're a power combo. Like a rock and roll band with two members. If you've ever seen such a thing, or a rap band with two members, like EPMD. You know what I mean? But the thing about it is the mind and the body, they do an excellent job of working together to convince you of fake reality. Yeah, but the thing about it is, Sarah, the body is still rushing, even if the mind knows different. It's very, very true. That's why you have to be mindful and actually get into a state where you're the observer. When you're into the state of being the observer, you got to actually watch both of them. You get to watch what the mind is doing, because you step beyond mind. There's a state of consciousness beyond mind, where all the mind's trickery, all the mind's deception, you could get beyond that and just watch it. Exactly, Tim. You're watching the moment unfold because you're in the present moment. So the present moment, if there's no danger, you can say to yourself, well, I don't have to respond as if danger is here. You get to sit back and just absorb what the mind is doing, observe what the mind is doing, observe what the body is doing, and disassociate yourself from both. No, I'm not saying disassociate yourself in an unhealthy way where you're having a mental breakdown. But what happens is you are able to remain calm. There's a guy who I listen to all the time, Muji. Muji does these beautiful, beautiful guided meditations. He's actually on Insight Timer. If you look up Muji, Mooji, he does these beautiful guided meditations. And he always uses the metaphor of the sky. Consciousness is like the sky, and thoughts are kind of like the clouds drifting by. So what the mind is doing, you could, if you're in the sky, say you're in an airplane, right, and you're flying at the level of the clouds, and there's a big storm, and there's the lightning and the thunder, and you're in an airplane right at the level of the storm, you're gonna get hit with rain. You're gonna get hit with that rain. But then when you kind of go beyond that and go above, you see all this activity of the mind, and you're kind of like, yeah, it's a storm down there, but I'm above the storm. That's what mindfulness is. That's what higher levels of consciousness are. That's why it's important to meditate consistently so that the brain can develop the capacity to tap into higher levels of consciousness beyond mind. Because, like I said, I've quoted this before. You guys probably heard me say this before. I wrote a song years ago where I had a line where I said, my eyes are deceivers, my mind is a liar. Your body and your mind will lie to you. Your body and your mind will lie to you. They will tell you you're in danger. You have to run now. And the mind is in on the trick too. Your mind will think a thought. The body will create a reaction to that thought, and it feels real until you become the observer and see it, and you can step back and you can say, wait a second, this ain't real. I don't have to respond to this. I'll let the thoughts come and pass by. I'll let them come. I'll let them go. It's only when you're attached to the thoughts, when you hold on to the thoughts and say, oh my God, something bad is going to happen, that's when you become immersed in that false reality. And that's why it's very important to be mindful and be in the present moment. I named this the sweet here and now. Why? Because so many of us who grew up in a spiritual Christian tradition, or many other spiritual traditions as well, they taught us about the sweet by and by, right? The sweet by and by, after you die, you're in the sky and everything's all right, right? I don't want you to worry about the sweet by and by. I want you to be in the sweet here and now. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, controversial spiritual leader from the Black community, he said something I found very profound. He said, seat yourself in heaven at once. He didn't say after you die, because he didn't believe in that. He didn't believe that you would die and go anywhere. He didn't believe that there was no God in the sky, but he was a very spiritual person. And he taught, seat yourself in heaven now, through learning how to focus the mind, through meditation, through mindfulness, and through building yourself up. The answer to everything. How you doing? Peace and blessings. Thanks for joining us. The answer to everything is self-development. If you can develop yourself, it'll get to the point where these emotions will arise in your mind and arise in your body. And keep in mind, your mind and your body are the same. In the Western world, we're trained to see everything in a kind of vivisectionist way, where there's the mind over here, the body over here, the heart over there. We see things in a dissective kind of way. They're all working together. So the mind, the body, the heart, the emotions, whatever terms you want to use, they're all working together to create this fake illusory world. In Hinduism, they call it Maya. It's an illusion. Yeah, and that's true too. Our brain has been colonized. And going back to what I was saying, once we learn to understand how the mind and body work, we're able to see beyond them. Like, for instance, have you ever been in a toxic relationship? And many of us have toxic relationships with our mind and toxic relationships with our bodies. Have you ever been in a toxic relationship? Things were just hellish. There was arguments. There was yelling and screaming and fighting. Y'all didn't get along. The relationship was totally toxic. And the other person knew you so well, they knew just what to say to hurt you. They knew just what to say to bring you down. They knew just what to say to make you feel like you're not even worthy of love, not worthy of praise, not worthy of affection, right? And then you develop yourself, you remove yourself from the relationship, and then you run into that person again. And they start trying to pull the same old tricks. You're ugly, you're fat, I don't like you. That's why nobody likes you. That's why you're a failure. Now, when you were in the thick of that moment, those words hurt, they cut deep, right? But when you evolve beyond that moment, they can say whatever they want to say, you won't care. I've experienced that. There were certain people who I would just be in a state of just dread of displeasing them, be in a state of dread that they're gonna reject me. And then you develop yourself and you're able to look at the situation and say, you know what? I don't need to get involved. I don't need to fall for this trap. I don't need to fall into this illusion again. And that's what happens. Once you become mindful, you're able to look at the toxic relationship that you have with yourself, and you're able to say, I don't need to respond to that anymore. You walk into a room, the anxiety kicks in, your stomach gets tight. Ordinarily, you think to yourself, okay, something bad's going to happen. Oh my God, I got to get out of here. Oh my God. But then when you become mindful and you're able to go beyond what the mind and the body are trying to convince you is reality, you're able to sit there and say, well, my stomach feels a little tight. Let me take a deep breath. I'll expand my belly. I'll relax all the muscles. And I'll sit here for 2 minutes and just breathe. And once I'm calm, I'll go back into the room and everything's going to be okay. Right? Because you built up the ability, the capacity in your brain to see beyond the mind into mindfulness. It's a higher state of consciousness. Right? It's a higher state of awareness. Imagine being in an abusive relationship where somebody are reflective of where we are in the moment. That's very, very true. That's very, very true. Relationships are a reflection of where we are in the moment. But that's interesting because at the same time, like I said earlier, seat yourself in heaven at once. You could be in any moment and not care. You could be in any moment and have total control of your emotional reactions. You could be in a situation where you're Greg, you're very welcome. You could be in a situation where you are in a toxic relationship and see beyond it and know it's time to go. You could be in a room full of toxic people and not care. I've been in because I meditate and I've been mindful for so long. You know, my fear response don't really work like it should, and sometimes that kind of gets me in trouble. There are moments where I should be a little, whoa, slow down, and there's moments where I'm like, yeah, who cares? I don't care. Like there's been times where I was driving my car started to kind of lose control because I was living in New England, which gets very, very cold, a lot of ice, a lot of snow. And I'm driving and my car starts to spin out. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. My car's spinning out. I'm observing it. I'm not afraid. I'm not panicking. I'm remaining calm. I slow the car down and gain control over it again. Then it starts to spin out again because my tires at that time I was dead broke. So my tires were like bald. I'm driving in the snow with bald tires, right? Which is stupid in and of itself. But I'm driving around, start to spin out again, and the car starts coming towards me. And I'm like, oh, I might die. This is interesting. But because I've gone into a state of thinking where I can see beyond fear and I can control my body's responses to things, I can stay calm in tough situations. Now, it doesn't always work. I'm working at a job now that, requires a tremendous amount of fortitude. Yes, it's becoming the observer of the toxic mind-body reaction that is difficult. But I think, one of the things that really truly helps is self-love. And I mean, when I say self-love, unfortunately, these terms self-love, self-care, they've been commercialized. So we end up with these pictures of somebody in a bubble bath with rose petals in a bubble bath and candles lit, and we think that's self-care. That's self-love. You could be abusive as heck to yourself and light a candle. You could be super abusive to yourself and lay in a bubble bath. You could scatter rose petals in a room and still hate yourself. So unfortunately, people have no idea what these terms mean anymore. There's so much fluff around these terms, so much commercialism around these terms now. Here, self-care, buy this thick, $400 alpaca blanket. You know what I mean? But self-care, self-love goes a little bit deeper than that. You really have to get to know yourself and really love yourself. And yes, I'll use this term. You got to forgive yourself. You got to be understanding towards yourself. You may have done some things you're not proud of. You may have said some things you're not proud of. But you have to learn to forgive yourself for those things and really truly be affectionate to yourself. And you have to stop the negative self-talk and start the positive self-talk and spend time alone and find out what you like and make sure the things you like and want are around you and find your path and find your purpose and give yourself kindness and give others kindness and break bad habits and cut off toxic people. And that kind of self-love helps you to become an observer of a toxic mind-body reaction because you have to become more observant in order to love yourself. In order for you to love yourself, you got to become more observant. You got to find out what's awesome about you. You got to find out what you like. I'm going through a phase now where for years I was working so hard trying to, make a living and take care of my kids and working so hard with this business. Now I have, opportunities. Well, I don't have as much opportunities as I would like, but now I have opportunities to do things and I don't even know what I want to do. So I have to take time to get acquainted with myself and find out what it is I want and what it is that I like now. And of course, I know I love to read. I love music. I know those things. But what do I want to do? Sometimes I have time on my hands. I'm like, what do I want to do? And I'll like mow the lawn or something like that. So we all got to take that time to become more self-observant so that we can become more self-aware and love ourselves more. And that helps you to notice the toxic relationship that we have with the mind and the body. Because the mind and the body, if you've been mistreated, if the mind has been mistreated, if the body has been mistreated, they become toxic. If you mistreat a person, he or she becomes toxic. If you treat a person like dirt for the first 10, 15 years of their life, by the time they're 16, they've been pretty well toxified. And sometimes even before that. Some individuals become toxic when they're 8 or 9 years old because they've been mistreated. And quite often, others mistreat us. And then we separate ourselves from those others, then we continue the process of mistreating ourselves. So it becomes very, very necessary for us to start working on the process of building ourselves up and loving ourselves and truly appreciating ourselves. But in that process of learning to love yourself, you become more observant. Guess what? You become more mindful. So the mind and the body can't trick you anymore because you know yourself. You know yourself and you love yourself. And you know what's going to trigger you in advance. You know what you need to make you powerful. If I knew I was going to go into a stressful situation back when I was going through, difficulty dealing with depression and anxiety, I would sit down and just meditate 20 minutes in advance, 15 minutes in advance. I used to work at a job in a school. There was a lot of kids who was dealing with trauma, a lot of kids dealing with, crazy things going on at home, and these kids would take it out on me. So all day I heard that I was F you, and kids would just say the craziest things to me, the most disrespectful things you can imagine. And so it became real stressful. So before I walked into that building, I would sit in my car and listen to, I would listen to a lot of Indian meditation music. And it would just put me in such a relaxed state, and I'd walk in there and you could do anything. You could say anything. I'd be calm. Be so calm. And you can do that when you're with yourself too. You can say to yourself, okay, I know that being alone sometimes can be tough for me. So while I'm with my group of friends, let me sit and just get some love. And I'm going to sit and meditate with all my friends. Now, you don't have to get them to join in. You don't have to say, let's all meditate together, because that might not work. You might have friends who can't sit still. You have friends who are always laughing and joking, but you can still meditate around other people without them even knowing it. You could be mindful around other people without them even knowing it. Somebody could be, holding a candle in their hand. They're trying to light a candle, whatever. They're trying to light some incense. My friends, when I was younger, my friends would smoke a lot. So they were always lighting incense. So if I'm in a room full of my friends and I want to get in that meditative zone because I'm about to go somewhere else that might be a little stressful for me, I'll stare at the incense, or I'll sit next to the incense and just stare at the smoke drift up in the sky and go into a little meditative trance in a room full of people. Or I would give somebody a hug, hold on a little extra long, and just meditate on that feeling of love and positivity. Right? And by immersing myself in that present moment, that sense of peace, it follows me. My awareness of my own body is a way of preventing the panic attacks and the anxiety from taking over. But it's a process. That's the thing. It's a process. That's why these self-care commercials that you see and these self-care advertisements that you see, sometimes I find them kind of offensive. Simply because they're not talking about the real self-care and the amount of time it takes to really take care of oneself. It takes about what, they're based on consumerism and labor. So it takes what, maybe like 40 minutes to draw a bath and get in the bathtub and relax and listen to music, and then you get up and you go back to work. So it's based on efficiency so that you can be a better worker. It's not based upon really taking the time to sit with yourself. Like I said, I was having panic attacks and high levels of anxiety and suicidal ideations and all of that stuff. And I would meditate every single day. And then after the first couple times I meditated, I stopped having the panic attacks, but I still felt the depression and the anxiety. It took about 6 minutes of meditating every single day. 6 months, every single day without fail. And then my mood started to change a little bit, and I started to see a little bit of improvement. And then after a year of meditating every single day, I really started to feel a difference. A year and a half, I felt like I overcame depression. But that's every single day of meditating. It takes time. But if I love myself, I take time with myself. We date other people. And if the other person, wants to be with us, we'll date them for, a year, 2 years, catering to them, giving them what they need. We don't do that for ourselves. For some odd reason, if you've been through trauma, it's easier for you to do these things for other people, harder to do these things for yourself. Because it's kind of an abstract concept for some people. If you've never had love, it's hard to have a conversation about self-love. It's tough. tough to have a conversation about self-love if you felt like you've never had love before. But anyhow, I know for a fact that mindfulness and meditation can help. And I'll say this, and this is a controversial statement. My ex-wife was a psychologist, and I used to say that you can overcome depression with meditation and mindfulness. And she would say, "No, you can't say that. You can't say that." And I've done a ton of research. I've looked up the studies, I've read the peer-reviewed articles, and I see the effects that mindfulness and meditation, when it's undertaken properly with supervision, can help individuals with. I've done the research, so I can say it. Some people might feel like, no, it's not true. You need medication. If your doctor puts you on medication, yes, take your medication. If you're seeing a therapist to deal with your trauma, continue to see your therapist. But add meditation and mindfulness to it, and I think that can help. There's nothing wrong with supplementing your therapy with a little bit of self-work too. And I'm talking from my own personal experience. I went from waking up thinking, how am I going to kill myself today, to waking up in the morning thinking, my God, the sun is beautiful. So I'm living proof. I'm my own study. Trust me, I've done experiments with myself you wouldn't believe. Trying to experiment with self-hypnosis was one of my wacky experiments. Developing new meditation techniques. Trust me, I've had all kinds of weird experiments. I've used myself as the guinea pig, so I can help other people, because I know I can handle the suffering if things go wrong. And it's been, let's see, 11 years. Wow. Meditating for 11 years and teaching it for probably about 5 years now, something like that. So yeah, I got my stripes. I paid my dues. I've been in the trenches. Trust me. I taught mindfulness and meditation in drug rehab facilities. I've taught it in schools. I've taught it to kids in college. I've taught it to individuals who just got out of jail, individuals going their way to jail. I taught it in the streets. I remember I was in the hood one day. I had 4 fold-up chairs in the back of my car, and I drove to a park. And this is a park where people would just gather in the mornings, and you see people walking around with their beer cans and, bags of drugs. And I just lined up my chairs, and I had my little speaker in my phone, and I would put on meditation music and say, sit down, come meditate with me. And I love that moment where you're talking to somebody and you're guiding them in meditation, and their eyes are closed, and you're guiding them, and they open their eyes and they look around like they can't believe it. They can't believe the experience they just had within themselves. And that's what mindfulness can do for people. It can give you an experience within yourself to empower you and show you the beauty that's inside you. That's why I teach it. Because I used to be unable to see beauty within myself. I used to literally sometimes sit down and just write a list of all the reasons why I should live and all the reasons why I should die. And even though the list of all the good that I had, for all the good that I provided for people and the good that I had within me, the list would be maybe 8, 9 things long. And the list of things about me that I didn't like would be like 40 things long. And now I can look at myself. I can see things that I need to improve upon, but I can't see nothing within me that I would ever destroy. I love myself too much. Even my imperfections, I think, have value. And that's how I want everybody around me to feel. I want to provide that for you if I can, but it's just something that you have to experience for yourself. And once you experience it and learn the techniques to be mindful and go beyond mind, then you realize you'll be able to see things as they truly are. But it takes time, and I want you to love yourself enough to take the time to do it. So for now, before we get into any questions or anything like that, let's just take a moment and let's try a little mindfulness meditation session. Just for maybe like 5 minutes or so. Now, right now, I just want you to relax. You don't have to breathe a certain way. You don't need a chant or a mantra. All I want you to do now is to allow yourself to be without a goal, without an assignment. There's nowhere you have to go. There's no posture you have to undertake, no pose. Just sit as you are, or lay, or stand. If you can simply do that in this moment, you've taken the first step to going beyond mind. Now bring your mind back to the here and now. Just allow yourself to be in this moment and accept all of it. If the mind is racing and chattering, allow it. You don't have to slow your thoughts. Don't be concerned with how you're breathing. The body will breathe how it wants. Don't try to change your breathing pattern or your thought pattern or the position of your body. Just be here in the sweet here and now. And if your mind begins to wander a little bit, if thoughts arise in your mind, just say, I accept this thought. I accept this journey. And recenter yourself gently and without force. Then just begin to notice the small details. Notice how your body feels, where you are, the weight of your body being drawn to the floor gently. Notice the feel of the texture of your clothes against your skin. Notice the flow of air in the room around you. And if you cannot feel it, listen to it. Listen to the room and just notice. No need to judge anything as good or bad. No need to dissect the moment. You can't anyway. All the stimulation of the sense organs are happening simultaneously. Wherever you are, just be there completely. Immersed in the moment. Is it warm? Is it cool? What smells do you smell? What do you taste? What can you see? Notice that you are a part of the room. Not simply in it, but you change the room too. Your energy changes the room. And in that sense, you and the area where you are one and the same. Release all boundaries, trying to separate you from your space. You are this space. Notice how being this space affects the sensations of the body and the reaction of the mind. And if you need to, take a second to just recenter yourself, recenter your thoughts, and hear the sound of my voice. And just accept what's in the room, accept what you can sense, accept it all. Don't judge it. Just be here and allow yourself to experience the experience of experiencing experiences. That's all you need to do. Now notice how when your mind becomes relaxed, without any kind of conflict, your thoughts slow down. Notice how when the mind becomes relaxed, the body immediately changes how it breathes without effort. You're simply allowing these things to occur and allowing these things to be. Now, in a moment, I will count to 5. When I count to 5, feel free to open your eyes. Or if you choose, you can remain relaxed with the eyes closed. As long as you feel immersed in the here and now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. All right. How is everyone feeling? Hopefully you feel nice and relaxed. Derek, you're very welcome. Is it refreshed? You feel refreshed? I'm glad. Really, you feel relaxed? I'm glad. How are you guys feeling? Let me know if you're all right. All right, before I go, I just want you guys to just remember my story is giving you hope. Trust me. I realized whatever you believe is what you manifest. And I simply believe that I could change. I believe that I could change, and I believe that if I focused my mind and learned enough, I could change. And for anybody who's been through panic attacks and depression and therapy and trauma and all that stuff, you can change. You don't have to remain the same. You're going to change anyway. And if you're a traumatized person, you have two options. Either you're going to just change without effort, which means that a lot of times you're going to get worse and sicker, or you can put in some effort and change for the better. It can be done. All right. So where I am is getting a touch late. So God can move mountains, bring a shovel. Yeah, you're 100% right. And God, in the Upanishads, The line that says the Lord is enthroned in the heart of all living beings. So God is in you. So that means you can move a mountain. It says in the Bible, you can move a mountain with faith the size of a mustard seed. That means you are going to move that mountain. Nobody's going to move it for you, but you can do it. Just have this much faith, the size of a mustard seed, right? All right, everybody. I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to say peace and blessings to everyone. Thank you so much. Check out my profile. Have a look at the info at the profile. If you see anything interesting, click the link. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace and blessings to everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here with me tonight. And I'm going to see you guys next week. All right. And I'm going to see you guys later on this week. Peace. You're welcome. You're welcome, Jacqueline.